Hello, all of DRWolf's viewers. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks to DRWolf for letting me fill in for him. Some of you may have seen me before, but for those of you that haven't, I'm Camgoespony, also known as that person with the really ridiculous OC. Now that introductions are out of the way, let's get on with the video. So how many times has there been a character or some aspect of the show that you didn't like, but then you read a fanfic or heard a song that made you appreciate it much more? Or have you ever been disappointed that the show failed to explore some concept or perspective, but then found some piece of fan art that scratches that itch for you? If you answered yes to any of those, then you probably have a good idea of what I'm talking about when I ask, how does fanwork change our perceptions of the show? Frankly, this is the reason why I love this fandom's high artistic output so much. If you ask me, when you take fanwork into account, the world of MLP can become much bigger, more rich, and even greater to immerse yourself in. How dull it must be to be someone who always tries to keep fanwork and the show's canon separate in their brains. I first became aware that exposure to fanwork was significantly altering the way I see the show during the Season 4 premiere. Remember this line?
But for me, it was just a terrible reminder that I'd had to banish my own sister.
This is a huge development in the show, and for Celestia's character. Given what we've seen in the show so far, we have had no reason to believe that Celestia had some deep-seated regret towards Luna's banishment. This one line makes Celestia's character much more interesting, and the whole conflict between her and Luna much greater. Then why is it, when I first watched this scene, I didn't even blink? The simple answer is fanwork. While the concept of Celestia regretting banishing Luna has never before been explored in the show's canon, it has been done to death by the fans. So when you say, hey, did you see that Celestia has always deeply regretted banishing Luna? I say, well, obviously, haven't you ever heard Lullaby for a Princess? Of course, it's more than just Lullaby for a Princess. Just looking at the songs, there is a huge amount of fan music about this, completely covering the spectrum. Everything from the very slow and sad Lullaby for a Princess by Ponyphonic, to the very fast and electronic Never-Ending Nightmare by Ecstaticus, which focuses more on Luna's perspective. Then in between, we've got Replacer's Waltz for the Night, Eurobeat Brony's Luna, D-Notive's Vicious Lies, Gatto Paint's Reminiscence, my favorite Brony song ever by the way, and so many more that I'm probably not even aware of. And don't get me started on the fanfics and artwork. Perhaps you can see why I didn't see this concept as anything new when I first saw it in the season premiere. And of course, this is just one example of fanwork calling something well before the show does. To pick something probably even more common in the fandom, let's look at Scootaloo's and Rainbow Dash's pseudo-sister relationship. Technically, it was never really a thing until Sleepless in Ponyville in Season 3, but fans have been using this idea everywhere for a very long time. Even fanfictions like Rainbow Factory had implied that this relationship existed, and that even became a pivotal plot point in the sequel. Even the fandom's gorefics were totally calling it on Scootaloo's and Rainbow Dash's relationship, and those are like almost the lowest standard for entertainment in the fandom, and I'm sure you could find even lower forms of Scootaloo and Rainbow Dash shipping, if you're into that sort of thing. But MLP fanwork does more than just predict things ahead of time. Let's talk about how fanwork can also improve the show. Every time the show's canon fails to explore some concept or perspective, either because the show decided to go another route, didn't have time, or because some concepts are just too dark to appear in the show, fans will always be willing to pick up the slack and fully explore every angle of every scene. What would it be like if the True True Friend song was replaced with Open Your Eyes by Aviators? What if we really wanted to know Twilight's thoughts on becoming an alicorn? It would probably sound something like Slipstorm's Alicorn Tears, or maybe Feather's Look to the Clouds, or maybe even Black Griffin's Faster Than You Know, which happens to be my second favorite Brony song. These are all songs about the same thing, but they reimagine these things from different perspectives and give them a whole new feeling. Taking these extra perspectives into account makes the show feel much more complex and complete. Sometimes, songs can even reimagine an entire episode. Just look at Slipstorm's Picture Perfect Lie or Castle of Shadows. In fact, literally as I'm writing this script, the Living Tombstone's Manhattan just slipped into my emails inbox, which happens to be a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Now I'm glad that I procrastinated on this script, because I would have missed that if I wrote this even just an hour earlier. I suppose Song's doing this doesn't just apply to the show. When I read the second story arc of the comics, I was a tad disappointed. The story focused an awful lot on Spike, Luna, and the rest of the main six, but it had surprisingly little focus on Rarity, who's having quite the adventure, what with being possessed and all that. I would have liked to see how that felt. Luckily, Gato Paint has an epic 3-part, and counting, song explaining exactly how that felt. Go give it a listen, it's awesome. I guess what I'm trying to say through all my incessant rambling and examples is that this show's fan work is able to expand your horizons and change the way you see things in the show, which is why I enjoy letting a little bit of fanon mixed together with my perception of canon. It makes the show just that much more enjoyable and entertaining. What do you think? And thank you for watching.